Good evening, everyone. I'm John O'Loughlin, and welcome to my channel. It's called, let's see, what's it called now? It's called McDuff 2. It's all one word, McDuff. McDuff lives to LIVESTWO. That's just my new backup channel. And literally moments ago, Andy made the connection so that we can go live on my backup channel for the first time. We're also going live tonight on Andy's, well, it was backup channel. This is Eek Eek Airwaves. Is that right, Andy? Yeah, he's nodding yes. Okay. It's Eek Eek Airwaves, and McDuff Lives 2 tonight. Thanks you all for following me over to the new channel. We have 50 subscribers, and Eek Eek Airwaves has 564 subscribers. Professor Hamamoto is with us tonight. George was unable to be with us tonight, but we are going to go forward anyway, and I'm sure it'll be an exciting show. Professor Hamamoto, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing very well, John. It's good to see you. And I am one of the first 50 subscribers to your backup channel. I don't know if you're planning on misbehaving or being naughty and getting prepared, but it's a good precaution that you're going to take. And I will subscribe to Andy's channel. I didn't know. I'm glad you said something about it. I didn't know he had a new channel up.
Oh yeah, this moves every day. I mean, yeah, that's one of the things, you know, that there's only so many hands that can do so many things. And you know, when we get bumped off of a channel, and George got bumped off of his channel on the same day that mine got shut down. And I'm not gone forever. I'm gone for a week over at McDuff Lives. But you know, they did the same thing to each of us on the same day. And so Andy, being the producer for both of our shows, has been working double overtime to keep up with everything. And once again, I think it's absolutely appropriate that we give Andy DeBala a round of applause.
Absolutely. I'll give him a gerbil kiss or a marmoset or a ferret. A big wet one from a ferret.
Okay, so and one more just housekeeping note for me, guys. Thanks for following my book publication. We are still working on getting the paperback done. With all the other delays, it's just been difficult to coordinate everything. So I'm expecting now to have the paperback version next week. You can get the Kindle version. It's up now on Amazon. So thanks a lot for your patience. I know everybody wants to get a hard copy, and Andy will be printing some right there at the new Neighborhood News Studio as they've got their new printers all set up. So things are happening, and we keep moving forward, and we do it together.
Well, congratulations again, John. It's a big achievement. Congratulations.
And guys, if you want to see the Professor Hamamoto's portion of the McDuff Memorial Weekend from June the 6th, it's up there on the it's still up, of course, on McDuff Lives. And that's really worth listening to. Andy Craig just knocked it out of the park, and then Professor Hamamoto really wonderful comments. And look at me in a suit. You know? Oh my God. Holy moly! I hadn't been in a suit in 10 years, probably. Well, I guess with few exceptions, but I didn't look too bad.
No, you look really good, really dapper. Is that how you used to go to court?
Oh yeah.
Right.
That's my old that's my old tie. You know, this is vintage lawyer material you're seeing there.
Oh, that was a great performance.
Can we hear that? Andy?
Give me 1 second, John. I got to be on the screen for you guys to hear this one.
Oh, okay. It's the Navy hymn, and it's yeah.
Let me get it at the start.
Here we go. Oh no, that's not going to work. You know what happens, Andy, is when you play a digital recording on a digital medium, it kind of gets all digitally chopped up. So that wouldn't be fair to our great violinist Timothy Judd to continue with that because of the distorted sound.
Yeah, you're listening through them through a dynamic microphone right there, so that's not that's not how you do it. But it did sound great live and in person. But
oh, fabulous! Yeah, Timothy Judd. Well, anyway, that didn't that didn't work out as well as I'd hoped. But if you look into it, if you look at directly on YouTube, then you'll see. I think you can see it. All right. Well, let's go back to our show.
Yes, John. I don't know if you heard. I just heard this recently. I mean, we were talking off air just before the show started about John McAfee, who committed suicide. But I learned something about that's really disturbing about this woman, who I greatly admire. She's both an MD and a JD. Her name is Dr. Simone Gold.
Oh,
I
yeah.
read the book. And did you hear about her being arrested in LA?
No.
Yeah, she was at the demo in the papers. Of course, they call it a riot. Even the left-wing papers call it a riot instead of a peaceful assembly. She was arrested because she was there.
What demo?
Pardon me?
Where? When?
She was at the Capitol on January 6th, 2001, amongst the so-called rioters. And then they ID'd her. And then I don't know who, maybe it was the FBI. They picked her up in LA and they arrested her.
Recently, they arrested her.
I don't know how recent. I think it's fairly, within the last few days or so.
Anyway, she's very present on Twitter, and I don't know if she's been incarcerated or any more.
Well, I did read some headlines about that, so I verified that some people are reporting on it. This is quite disturbing. She was part of this organization. Let me see if I can get it right. The White Coat Group, is it called? White Coat Summit. And you just spoke about you being put in the penalty box for a while along with George Webb. But that White Coat Summit, you might have seen it. I saw it live. And I think I might have taken a copy of it because I figured it was going to be taken down. But that White Coat Summit that Dr. Gold led received 20 million views.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw it. There was like a double row of medical doctors wearing the white coats.
Standing in front of the Capitol.
In front of the Capitol. And we won't say why they were there because we don't want to be taken off again. But
no, they were vacuum cleaners. They were there to talk about vacuum cleaners.
Absolutely. Yeah. Those nasty vacuum cleaners. So that's one medical doctor. And at the other end of the spectrum, there's a medical doctor who happens to be a psychiatrist. And he returned like a dog returns to its vomit. He returned to the Alex Jones show last week. And his name is Dr. Steve Pieczenik. So we have one person here in a white coat, right? And then I figured this out. John, tell me, if I'm off base here. I figured this out. I know why people keep following him, despite the fact that he keeps lying his ass off on, on these shows. It's the Hawaiian shirt psyop.
That's the old Hawaiian shirt psyop. Okay,
you're familiar with it.
Now, I used to have a small collection of said Hawaiian shirts. So what was I telling everyone?
Well, let me ask you, you're the perfect person to ask, John. When you're wearing your Aloha shirt, your Hawaiian shirt, don't you find that people are really, really friendly towards you?
Well, yeah. It's cool. You feel like you're just really, really cool. I'm cool. I'm walking down the street. Everybody's, just really cool with me. Like, hey, John. Hey, man. Aloha.
Everybody has warm, fuzzy feelings about Hawaii. And I guess they see a person in a Hawaiian shirt and it really lets down their guard.
Uh-huh.
Because I know I have a small collection myself, of Aloha shirts.
Yeah.
And I usually don't wear them out in public anymore because people stop and start talking to me. asking me for directions and trying to chat. They're just so overly friendly. Like when I go to the supermarket or something. So
Yeah.
I just wear my scowl and a hoodie, and then people leave me alone. But with a Hawaiian shirt, you can con anybody. That's what I figured out. That's the secret to Dr. Steve Pachenik.
Okay. All right. I'm with you on that. So tell me, what is Steve Pachenik's role in this great
Oh
world?
yeah, well
Right.
it took him a couple of weeks, but he figured out a new plot line because many of the people who are watching here know that he is a adventure story novelist himself, but he was also a consultant to the popular author Tom Clancy to give him plot points and scenarios and give him a little bit of local color and perhaps give him some inside information from his own Dr.
Yeah.
Pachenik's own activities. So he has rewritten his storyline. Now he's saying, yeah, there's another glib guy right there, Nick Fuentes. He's his best asset is that he doesn't leave any dead air, but he's another glib BS artist. But Dr. Pachenik has rewritten the script because he was embarrassed. He was humiliated that President Trump was cheated in the way he was. But now he's saying that, well, he's implying, at least he's intimating that was the overthrow was something that he planned, because that's the only way that the American people, stupid as we are, that's the only way that the American people could fully see for themselves how corrupt all these institutions are. But, I'd have to disagree. I think most of us were already aware of that. We didn't really need him to take us through this exercise, right? So he's hinting again that it's like it's the hopium type of scenario that Anon was forwarding. And he was back last week, smiling away with his duper's delight, just shining through. And I think there's people who are going to believe him still, again, because he's got the Hawaiian shirt.
Are you saying that he is taking ownership of the agent provocateur, the running the FBI, the secret infiltrators into the Proud Boys, into Antifa, into the various groups that converged on January 6th? Am I understanding what you're saying correctly?
Well, I don't think he's taking credit for it directly. A lot of what gets him over, in addition to the Aloha shirt, is implying that he has all these secret powers, right? And that he's overthrown foreign countries. I would take out the foreign part and just say overthrow countries, because that would then include the United States of America. But the point that he's making is that he has these superpowers, that he can pull strings and orchestrate objective situations like the events of January 6th, where Alex Jones was also embarrassed and had made a cash investment to bring all these people there. And he's rewriting it to claim that everything's going to work out okay, right? And there's even some talk that President Trump is, still in office, and he might make a return. I'm not going to bet any money on that. So, hope springs eternal for the hopium merchants. Now, on a more serious note, I found something very interesting, John, and perhaps we can talk about our own experiences in the Cold War culture. But I found something really interesting, because a lot of people already know that I'm doing this piece on the occult nature of the takeover of our nation on January 6th, and the occult nature of Melania Trump's role in all this. But to reinforce my insight, I found out recently in this book, it's called Covert Encounters in Washington, D.C., and it's by a credible journalist by the name of Robert M. Stanley. And I've had this book for some time, and I kind of leafed through it. And it's about UFO phenomena over our capital, our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And it's just a chronology of it, decade by decade. And it seems to hold a lot of water. And it intersects with a lot of my own current research, not about UFOs, but about the crypto government in the U.S. But anyway, I thought it was really interesting. And maybe you can hopefully comment on this. But on page 322, he notes that the ellipse, where President Trump was giving his address to the amassed people there, at the ellipse, that's the very same location where the 1951 science fiction film was filmed. It's called The Day the Earth Stood Still. Remember that one?
Is that the one that Michael Rennie was in?
Precisely.
Yes, I remember that. And the spaceship comes down and the ramp comes down and the guy rumbles, down the ramp. And
that was the ellipse.
I don't remember what the plot was, except for that. Oh, look, there's this guy from a spaceship.
Well, here's the bonus round for you. What was the name of Michael Rennie's character in The Day the Earth Stood Still? Anybody in the chat?
Oh.
It's right there. I know you know it. Let me give you a hint. Does this phrase mean anything to you? This phrase? Kalatu barada niktu.
Yes. Klaktu barada niktu. Now, please, I can't stand it any longer. Tell me his name.
Well, yeah, Michael Rennie's name was Kalatu.
Klaatu. Okay. Yeah.
Klaatu.
Yeah. We have a winner on the chat there, Peter Bione. Congratulations, Peter. You win the a look at the national obelisk there.
Right. The Washington phallus. Most people have read by now the various occult architectural monuments that are in Washington, D.C. And I came away with a really important instructive lesson from the great Peter Duke, the photographer. I was on a show a few weeks ago, and he said he was there as well on January 6th, along with Dr. Gold. I don't know if they ran into each other, even though they're almost neighbors, right? But he said that, and he showed me the photos. They're great. They're incredible architectural photos. But he said he went to the Department of Agriculture, and it's full of nothing but Mithraic, taurine, bull symbology,
Really?
Yes. And he said, not coincidentally, the Environmental Protection Agency is housed in that building, the Department of Agriculture. So since that time, John, and I'm telling your audience here and mine as well, because I'm doing the whole cultural forensic series now, what I've done in the past 3 weeks since talking to Peter Duke about it, and I have some familiarity, but I've been getting a lot of academic literature about the Roman cult of Mithras. This is an excellent one. This is by a Greek scholar, and it's published by University Press, University of Toronto Press, I think. It's called the Roman Mithras Cult. So the reason I mention this is because, we have Dr. Gold, who was arrested. She was there at January 6th, and she concludes her book talking about how we're a constitutional republic, and she talks about the Declaration of Independence. So she's a firm, like most of us have been or are or still, or maybe always will be. She's a believer. She subscribes to the ceremonial government that's there. Maybe it was never there to begin with. Maybe we've always been ruled by the House of Orange through this Roman Mithraic cult. And the other part was just, to put it bluntly, window dressing. That's just a hypothesis at this point. And we're finding out, we meaning people who are looking at this, and archaeologists have unearthed an entire Mithraic ceremonial sacrificial site in London. That place is all cordoned off, and all the archaeologists and physical anthropologists are sifting through it to make some sense of it. So it doesn't seem that much of a stretch to imagine that the colonists and people who came in their wake, people, for example, who settled Maryland and Virginia, brought with them that cult of Mithras to the U.S. And then when the United States was formed, the Republic was formed, integrated that whole. Oh, Andy's got something there. Yeah, is that the Roman ruins, Andy? Yeah, okay, yeah, that's in London. So it's not that far of a stretch, I don't think. And this is still a hypothesis, right? But it's not.
I'm just telling Andy, I don't think that is the actual site that the professor's talking about. What he's talking about, a place in the city of London that is an exhibit. It's like an exhibit of the old city, and anyway.
Yeah, it's far more extensive than that picture there. But I'm thinking that cult might have migrated with colonists and also agents and other people who were involved in settling colonial America. And the reason I'm mentioning is because I think that might have something to do with the takeover today in 2021. I think that's something worth investigating, because we've seen time and time again through the hair pulling contests, right, through the school plays, of all these different methods of distracting us from the real storyline. And the real storyline might have to do with this animal sacrificial cult that's memorialized in the nation's capital. And maybe that's one of the reasons why it's still fenced in. It's penned in like a bullpen right now as we speak. Anyway, these are research threads that are worth investigating. And this is just the type of research that your audience loves to follow up on. So I'm putting out the challenge there. From Klaatu to the Washington Monument, it's all wrapped up.
There is your animal with the character Jake and Jelly, who went in on January 6th wearing the buffalo horns. I guess it looks like bull horns too. And I think when you say bull horns, that connects it to Mithra.
Yes, that's a good one, John. Can I use that?
I'm giving it to you, brother.
Okay.
Free, I mean, it comes from between this ear and this ear, so it can't have come out of So there he is.
That's the Mithridates.
But let me give you the punchline.
All right, please.
He's still locked up. He's locked up in the Alexandria jail under federal charges. And there's actually people that are publishing appeals to free the guy, to say, hey, he was just a nutcase that went into the Capitol, and he's done. He shouldn't be locked up just because he, But contrast that with all the easy research that was done right after the event that showed that this guy's been an agent in so many events in the past, getting paid. But the symbolism brings that Mithra cult right up front. And when you say that they kept the animal locked up, well, let me give you some more stuff on Mithra, which is really directly tied to me and the amazing things that have happened in my life. I guess it was about 2010 that I first applied to a professional voice academy in Italy, and got in. And I was just shocked and thrilled and everything. And so I went, and I got to sing in the piazzas in these cities and towns, but the most exciting venue was in Rome itself, and I was able to perform in a place called the Basilica San Clemente. And the Basilica San Clemente dates back all the way to the Christian era, to the first Christian churches. And while we're not exactly sure whether this is exactly the same as the very first Basilica San Clemente, it goes back to the Mithraic era. And it so happened that somebody I knew in Canada had known a priest that had been very instrumental in the restoration of the lower basement part of the church. And what the incredible thing about this church, there it is that it is built on top of the older church, which is built on top of the older church, which is built on top of the older church. So there's, I don't know how many layers of churches over the centuries are there. That's, of course, the most recent, and the interior. It is beautiful. But I was asked to go down and say a prayer at the tomb of this priest. I can't remember his last name right now. I'm sorry, but the day before I left Rome, I went over there, and it was getting ready to close. And I asked the lady, please, I need to go down. So I said, let me go down to the bottom place and say a prayer for this priest. And then you get down into the lowest thing, and you see these tombs, and what they have, it is kind of a factory of what do you call those sepulchers? The thing that you get buried in, if it's like a stone tablet on a stone box. Well, the fascinating thing was that what'd you say, Andy?
Sarcophagus.
Yeah, sarcophagus. Thanks, brother. And anyway, there's these slabs that go on top, when they close it, and they had printed Christian symbols on one side and Mithraic symbols on the other side. So it depended upon whether the person that died was a Christian or a Mithra follower as to which way they flipped the top of the sarcophagus to put it on the top, for the funeral. So that's just stuck with me, and the what that symbolizes to me is the virtual identity of the Mithraic and the Christian religion at that time. And when you say, well, perhaps Mithra came over here, with the Jesuits and with the Pilgrims and with all the people that followed on, but I think the tone was set by the first immigrants, whether in New England or Virginia or Maryland. Those people were carrying with them the culture that they had inherited from their culture. But to see through the apparent Christian form to the older Mithra form, and this is where people can go and say, oh, look, that's the same legend. It's about, December 25th. Oh, okay. And I think the virgin birth is also involved. I can't rattle them off on my mind, but the similarities between the Mithraic and then the actual meetings that they'd had too. It's a fascinating line that I was searching through for a year or so after I got back from Rome, but I've lost. I don't have the details any more than that, but I certainly do think that there's a lot there. That Basilica San Clemente is very, very old, and is in fact administered by Irish monks for the past couple hundred years, if I recall. It's just but I'll never forget singing there because the acoustics are fabulous.
Wow, what an incredible account. Now, I mean, you were there. Did it seem like an underground cave or a cavern?
Yeah.
Besides being a basilica, I mean.
Underneath, you're 3 or 4 layers down under what you see on the video that Andy showed. And it, well, he did see, it was like being in a crypt, but, it wasn't like you had to crawl under. It wasn't like the ceiling was low, but it was, you're definitely underground. But see, that's a result of the change in the ground level over the centuries. because apparently these old things, they just got buried. I don't know why the why the level of dirt would raise up, but somebody probably knows the answer.
Well, the reason that, I ask about that is it's fairly well known that the Washington, D.C. area is honeycombed with these catacombs and these cave-like structures, which is central to the worship sites, the shrines of Mithras. And it might have a carryover to the Christian era, because from what I understand, Christianity was an underground cult before Constantine said it was okay. And they hung out in the catacombs. So that might have something to do with it. But in this very same book that I found out that our friend Klaatu landed, and President Trump gave his talk there on the ellipse, which is itself is a mystical symbol, right? It's a solar pattern, and you're a astronomer, so you know the significance of that. But in this very same book, it talks about the tunnels under DC. It says this tunnel is part of an extensive secret underground White House tunnel system leading to various government locations throughout the DC area, including the subterranean President's Emergency Operations Center, located 6 stories under the East Wing. Right, that's the PIOC. That's where Cheney said to his assistant, "Let it come. You know, the aircraft's coming in, and don't worry about it. It's going to hit." So there it is. It's DC. It has all the whole Mithraic structures above and below. And here we are looking to people like Nancy Pelosi or Kamala Harris for political legitimacy and leadership. And they really don't occupy either position like that. They're more ceremonial than anything else. It's scary on the one hand. On the other hand, it's quite liberating if that's really the case. They have no legitimacy. They have no political legitimacy, and they have no right to rule. If indeed this is what people like Mr. Stanley are claiming, not just him, but any number of people. Something to ponder.
I just was thinking about the crazy the whole business of psychiatry, from starting with Sigmund Freud and the Sigmund Freud's connection to our propaganda with Edward Bernays, Carl Jung, and a woman that I had never known anything about before, Sabrina Spielrein, who was a psychologist that Jung credited with the idea of a people having a death wish. And I thought that was so creepy that it was a woman, but to look into her history, I mean, that's all I did was to read that Wikipedia article. But you were already familiar with her, and I think she's somebody significant because, I mean, maybe I shouldn't say in a ZI psychology, but that's what I think is going on here. Is people's minds are getting bent toward this very dark view of humanity, more of using religion as a cult as opposed to a way to know more about, you know, the spiritual side of experience.
Well, absolutely. Carl Jung, and this is admitted even by professed Jungians, as well as his former colleague, Sigmund Freud, they had a very, very dark conception of the human experience, the human realities. I don't know whether it was due to their particular cultural milieu that they were in. You know, if I was living at that time, even if I was as well placed in a bourgeois as they are with their professional clientele, that was a really heavy time of European and world history. So I can understand why they'd be so dark. But Spielrein herself had a love affair with Carl Jung against all the professional ethical norms as well as practical norms. And Jung was really worried about being thrown out of the Psychoanalytic Association. And he admitted it to his father, quote unquote, Sigmund Freud, that he was having this relationship. And Freud didn't really come down on him. He, in fact, and this is why I think that the whole history of psychology and psychoanalysis could benefit from academic feminist scholarship. Ironically, they're really obsessed with GLBTQ issues, but I think the whole field of psychoanalysis and psychology could use a historiographic revolution and be looked at through the lens of women like Spielrein, who are so important. But anyway, they blamed her. They blamed Spielrein for, they have all these rationalizations that they like to call theories, like seduction theory. That was one of their most popular ones. Now, Freud originally developed that seduction theory, and he stood by it. But then he abandoned it at some point. I'm getting this from Jeffrey Masson, Masson, who was going to be put in as the head of the Freud archives. Right, all the papers, most of which have not been published even to this day, and that was held by Freud's daughter, Anna Freud. So he was going to assume the mantle as the curator and the guardian of the Freud legacy. But he went through the papers and he read about people like Spielrein and Dora, which was the fictitious name of this woman who had claimed to be molested and sexually abused as part of her therapy. Freud first was accepting these stories for literal truth, but then at some point, according to Masson, who's the historian of psychoanalysis, by the way, he wrote a great book called Against Therapy, saying that there's absolutely no use, no credibility, no validity to psychoanalysis. Psychology, yes. Psychoanalysis, no. And I agree with him, just for full disclosure purposes here. But anyway, Freud changed his mind about the seduction theory and instead came up with this notion that these were, quote unquote, hysterical reactions on the part of these women, or this was some sort of suppressed, sublimated desire for the father that was coming out, right? And then later on, academic feminists, when they were still doing good work back in the 70s, started to reevaluate the literature, the data, and the interpretation of the dreams and all that Freudian work, and said, we have to start looking at the claims of these women, and they have validity. And since that time, over the decades that followed, there's been a wealth of literature within the field and without it about systematic intrafamilial sexual abuse and abuse between authorities, including psychoanalysis people like Freud and Jung. Jung was notorious for sleeping with his patients. It pervaded the entire culture and it tainted it, and I think it persists to this day. It's one of those false gods that we're worshiping today. We speak that language, and we've internalized, if I could use that term, internalized that whole mindset. It's hard to really communicate without using psychoanalytic terminology. And when you're using their terminology, you're also expressing their worldview. So I agree with Masson. We have to take a fundamental reevaluation. And I want to ask you, John, I mean, you sent me that information about Spielrein. How did you come across her name? What was the context in which it came up? Spielrein? Do you remember?
I can't remember.
Oh, it was just kind of like a random piece of...
Maybe serendipitous, yeah.
Okay. But it's her and Dora and Emma, all these fictitious... yeah. I mean, they're pseudonyms that Freud and people like Jung used for a publication purpose for their academic societies. But until recently, they negated the experience of these women, which most likely were real. I mean, I'm convinced about their original accounts. And that's why, by the way, this is one of the reasons why I'm interested in V.C. Andrews. This is why I have taken upon myself to only read biographies and autobiographies, at least for the time being, written by women, because I want to find out what's in your world, because it's also part of the Me Too movement. I want to understand what Rose McGowan is about and what her claims are. So this is just part of this this inquiry that I'm doing, and I'm finding out that that we were on the wrong track for most of the post-war period. We were on this wrong Freudian, Bernaysian, as you point out, track, and we allowed ourselves to be manipulated by advertising, by government propaganda, by education, by the churches, through this initial lie, the great lie that was founded around the cult, not of Mithras, but around another BSer. That would be Sigmund Freud. He's full of bull himself.
Yeah, I can pull some more out of this and throw it back at you. The bull of Sigmund Freud is the seduction of us away from the good Christianity and back into a cultish type of religion that Mithra really is about an annual ceremony of the hero that rises up and kills the bull. And the blood of the bull is what feeds the earth and allows the spring to happen. And it's kind of like an Osiris thing.
Yes,
but it's different. It's more. This is more of a Persian version, a Persian version of the hero the hero tale that becomes a Jesus type figure before there was Jesus. And this killing of the bull, though, is a cyclical thing, like the tree of life. And these cyclical things are the cult religions, the ones that want everybody to just say, oh, okay, you're here for a while and then you die and there's nothing you can do about it. The Grateful Dead type of philosophy of here today, gone tomorrow, but let's just enjoy today. Be here now. And all of that stuff is to deflect us away from our spiritual natures and the connections we can make on a spiritual level with one another and with ultimate truths and the Platonic type of stuff that gives us hope, real hope, that there really is more than just the sums on an accounting sheet when your life is over. There really is more to humanity than just going to war and hoping to get to Valhalla instead of dedicating yourself to a life of peace and to trying to fight against this psychological battle that we face as a culture that wants to demean us and turn us back into an animalistic type of people that would worship the guy that wears the horns.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree with you 100%, John, about that. And that probably for me, as for you, is the most devastating outcome of this whole tradition called Freudian Jungianism and psychoanalysis in general. And I think that should be a priority for all of us, to repudiate it, to walk away from it, say, no, we're not going to subscribe to it. And on my own channel, I've talked about how psychoanalysts, therapists, counselors, these are PhDs with psychology, they're psychoanalysts, they have started to infiltrate the faculty offices. They're putting them in faculty offices because they are the new priesthood that is going to be ringing in this transhumanist world. Yep. Because in order to get to transhumanism, first you have to devaluate, as you so eloquently expressed, the human experience, the adventure, the love, the music, right? The beauty of existence and everything that's under the sun that's so wonderful and needs to be celebrated instead of debased and denigrated. Yeah. And that is part of the metaphysics of oppression that we're seeing today. And it's not going to be done away with if we take away personality X, Y, and Z, whoever it might be. It could be Adam Schiff, it could be so and so and so on. No, there's a much deeper and darker metaphysics that undergird personalities like them, who are accustomed. They come under that regime, and they're sort of their messengers, if you will. They're their reverse angels, of this dark Mithraic, cultic, sacrificial blood sacrifice system that was done away with, or at least it was attempted. It made a resurgence after World War II, I think.
It actually is Constantine. Also, it goes way back to then when the Christian religion was underground. Well, it was underground, and it existed as very much of like the basic apostles type of stuff, with a kind of a communistic attitude of if you have something, share it. That original, that's just a completely a way of poor people surviving.
Right.
They say if you're in trouble, go and see poor people, because the rich people ain't going to help you, right? Well, that's right. And that's the way that the early Christianity is to me, is to turn the other cheek and help somebody that's less well off than yourself. Well, Constantine needed to have an imperial form of religion, and so what we end up with is a reassertion of the myth of Mithras into Christianity. And that's where I think you hit the nail on the head right at the top of the show when you said, this Mithra stuff is still here. And yeah, I think that's pretty good work for 1 hour.
Oh, absolutely. And well, this is consistent with the direction that I'm heading in my own research. But yeah, Constantine, right? That's really kind of the fall of institutionalized Christianity. That's when this whole ecclesiastical system gets put in place, and then you have the Vatican eventually growing up out of that, and then we know the modern history of that. But I've really been helped personally, and also not just intellectually but spiritually, by reading, I think it's a Penguin or Oxford, because these books are available there. I think it's a Penguin edition of writings, and I don't remember their names. These are not people that you read about or hear about in these circles, in these official circles. But it's a book called the Desert Fathers. The Desert Fathers. These are the early Christians before the ecclesiastical system took place. And you know what? They're monks. They don't have anything. They walk around and they don't want any followers. They'll teach you little aphorisms if you buy them a meal or something, or take them in, or but they're I don't know, they're I guess sort of a hermit type people, and they're not these, yeah, there you go, and they're not these giant institutions that are built around them. So by definition, they're not involved with the political system, and they can't be exploited by political systems for supernatural legitimacy, let's say, right? So we can still learn. Those books are still available. We can read them, and my gosh, it was a revelation to me. I could kick myself for not reading this earlier. Instead, wasting my time trying to master the literature that comes out of people like Freud and Jung. It's been a really effective psyop, the psychology industry.
And let me try to take it one step further, since we have another couple of minutes. It's recently been reported, well, in the last 10 years, that Sigmund Freud was a secret Freemason.
I didn't know that.
Yes. And if that is the case, then to me, it kind of answers the test. The test being, where in the world did all this misogynistic psychology come from, right? Did Sigmund Freud just dream it up? Or was it based on his own personal desire for how, men and women would relate to each other, and so he tried to impose that on everybody else? Well, I think it has to do with the empire and the money that is represented by high-level Freemasonry, including, of course, the royal family and the usually the Duke of Edinburgh or the Duke of York or somebody else is often the head of British Freemasonry. And that provides a secret society to impose from behind the scenes an entire regimen of the economy, i.e., the dope trade, as we know now. And the whole idea of Freemasonry is a male society, and it is a way to keep society dominated by the males of this particular view of life. And so if a psychological, if somebody like Freud comes along and says, well, here's the way men and women relate to each other, does it happen to be consistent with the empire, with the desires of, say, the Habsburgs to keep things, everything just the way it is? Like they say about Shakespeare, that in Shakespeare's time, he's writing to a time when if your father was a cobbler, then you're going to be a cobbler. There is no upward mobility. Everything is the same. Nothing changes, and that idea of keeping things the way they are is very, very convenient to those rich Anglo-Saxon and European nobles that, they've got the best of everything. And as long as women are not a threat politically, that's a good thing. So a psychologist that comes along and can teach everybody that, hey, yeah, women are different and have all of these psychological problems with hysteria and you name it. I think there's some truth there to be found if somebody wanted to keep researching that notion that I came up with, which it really does to me offer an idea of why Sigmund Freud has tried to shape society in the way he has.
Well, I think, John, you might have provided me the coin that's dropped about this abandonment of the seduction theory. I think maybe someone came to him and said, listen, incest is the glue that holds our secret society together. Because I always talk about buggery and bastardy, right? Says you're going to have to abandon the seduction theory and pretend it's just a projection of these crazy, quote unquote, hysterical women, because that's really the motor that keeps us in power. And it's true. I mean, I just got this book recently. It's called The Dark History of the Tudors as Henry VIII. And the subtitle is Murder, Adultery, Incest, Witchcraft, Wars, Religious Persecution, Piracy. So you're right. It's about empire. And we're still operating along those lines in 2021. So let's break the bonds. Let's resolve to do that for 2021. Thank you very much, John. I think now we need a fiddle tune just to put kind of like the cherry on top.
Well, actually, I haven't had my fiddle out of the case since I started trying to write my book, Professor. And
okay.
I will. I'm sure I'll get back to my fiddle playing. I enjoy it, but I was so impressed by Timothy Judd's beautiful violin playing, and at the memorial for my father on January 6th, and the party after the show was just terrific. He was kind enough to let me play along with him, and so we played some duets, and we played. He played something classical, and I'd play something traditional fiddle music, and back and forth. And it just was a personal joy for me. So once again, Timothy Judd of the Richmond Symphony, thank you.
Mm-hmm. It's the music, it's the arts, it's the performing arts that the dark ones cannot really overcome. Freud would admit that. He says, the poets have it all over on me. They have the energy, they have the authority, and they have all the attention of all the beautiful women in the salons. It's the poets, it's the singers, it's the musicians. He felt so bad that he was only a Freudian.
I think you got it. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Right. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you, John.